I moved into a shared apartment my second year of college. It was cheap, run down, the kind of place where the pipes rattle and the hallway always smells damp. My roommate's name was Daniel. He seemed normal at first, quiet, kept to himself, always polite. But looking back, he was too polite, like he was reading from a script. After the first week, I started noticing things. Not just that he was quiet, but that he was static. He was always awake. I'd go to bed at midnight. Daniel would be sitting at his desk, staring at a blank computer screen, shoulders stiff. I'd wake up around 3:30 a.m. to use the bathroom. He'd still be there, same position, not typing, just sitting. I'd wake up around 6 a.m. for class. He hadn't moved an inch. I asked him about it once. "Don't you ever sleep, man?" He turned his head slowly, too slowly, like his neck was rusted. He smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. "I don't need much," he said. His voice was dry, scratchy, like dead leaves. But it wasn't, not much. It was never. I started keeping track. 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. He never slept. Not once. And then there was a smell. The apartment started to smell like spoiled meat. I blamed the garbage. I blamed the old pipes. I bought air fresheners. But Daniel never seemed to notice. He just sat there, in the stench, watching his screen. One night, I pretended to be asleep. I kept my eyes barely open, watching the crack under my door. At 2:47 a.m., I heard footsteps. Heavy, dragging. My door creaked open. Daniel was standing in my doorway. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking through me. His eyes were wide, milky, unblinking. He stood there for 10 minutes. He didn't breathe. I didn't see his chest move once. Then he turned around, using his whole body like a mannequin, and walked back to his room. I didn't sleep that night. My mind wouldn't rest. I stayed for 2 more weeks, terrified, until I finally couldn't take the smell anymore. I told the landlord I had a family emergency, and I left. 6 months later, my phone buzzed. A message from someone I knew from campus. "Did you hear about Daniel?" I felt a chill go down my spine. "No. What happened?" "They found him in the apartment. Dead." "That's terrible," I said, but my friend cut me off. "No, you don't understand. The coroner said he'd been dead for a long time. Based on the decomposition, he died before you even moved in." I dropped the phone. The police think it was a mistake, an error on the time of death. But I know what I saw. I know who I talked to. And sometimes, late at night, I wonder if he was dead the whole time, then what was moving his body? I moved into a new apartment last year. Small building, 4 floors, 12 units in total. My living room faced the inner courtyard, and directly across from me, maybe 30 feet away, was her unit. The lady who lived there kept her curtains closed. Heavy blackout curtains. Day or night, it didn't matter. I never saw them open. I'd see her outside sometimes, walking to her car, checking her mail. She looked completely normal, middle-aged, always wearing the same dull gray coat, head down and quiet. I didn't think much of it, until I realized something. Her apartment was always dark. Even at night, there was never any light bleeding through the edges of her curtains. No TV glow, no lamp, nothing. Just black, like the room didn't exist at all. The first time something felt wrong was at the grocery store. I was in the produce section. I saw her standing there, same gray coat, picking out apples. Her hands were completely still for a few seconds before she moved, like she had to remember how. She then looked at me, and I pretended not to notice her. I turned and walked straight to the checkout. It took maybe 12 seconds, but when I got there, she was already at the register, paying. I froze, because there was no way she could have gotten there before me. I looked back toward the produce section, and I saw the gray coat, still there, turning down the aisle. My stomach dropped. My brain tried to explain coincidence. But how could someone else have the exact same coat? But deep down, I knew it was her, because I'd seen her clearly. A week later, I saw her at the gym. She was on a treadmill, walking slowly, not sweating, just staring straight at the screen. I felt uncomfortable, so I went into the locker room, but she was already there, standing at the sinks, fully dressed, in the same gray coat. My heart jumped so hard I thought something was wrong with me. She was staring at herself in the mirror, completely still. She wasn't blinking, wasn't moving either. She was just there, like she'd been there longer than I had. I left immediately, because I started feeling like the universe was torturing me. A few days after that, I stopped going out. I started ordering groceries from home, worked remotely, tried my best to avoid people, because I started feeling something I couldn't explain, like I was being watched. Not casually, not occasionally, but constantly. Then one night, around 11:26 p.m., I looked out my window. Her curtains were open, for the first time, but the room behind her was completely black. She was standing there, and honestly, I wasn't surprised. I was getting used to it. Pressed against the glass, hands flat on the window, staring directly at me, watching me like she had me in mind for days. My heart started pounding. I started getting that same old feeling, the one I'd been trying to ignore. I grabbed my phone because I needed proof of what was going on. I raised the camera and took the picture. The moment the shutter clicked, the air in my apartment changed. It became cold, like I was inside a fridge. Not normal cold. Then I heard it. A floorboard creaks, right behind me, less than 2 feet away. I couldn't move. I was struggling to breathe. It was as if my nose was blocked. Slowly, I looked down at the photo on my screen. There she was, across the courtyard, still standing in her window. Same position, same posture. But from the reflection of my window, she was standing behind me, close enough that I could see her shoulder, her head tilted slightly, watching me. From inside my apartment, I got so scared I couldn't turn around. I didn't want to see her. Slowly, my hands became numb, and my phone slipped from my fingers. The minute I got the strength to move, I grabbed my keys and ran outside like my life depended on it. I never went back. I stayed at a motel for a few days. I paid movers to pack everything at my apartment. I didn't care what I left behind. I just needed to get out. But even now, sometimes those moments still haunt me. I thought I knew my wife. We've been married for 5 years, but about 3 months ago, I found something in our attic, and that's when I realized something that still keeps me awake at night. I had been sleeping next to a stranger. It didn't start all at once. At first it was small things, the kind of things you brush off because you don't want to believe anything is wrong. About 3 months after we got married, she quit her job. She said the stress was getting to her and that she needed a break. I didn't question it. I was making good money at the time, so it wasn't really a problem. A few months later, she came to me with an idea. She wanted to start a small business, buying and reselling products online. She had a full plan written out, spreadsheets, costs, profit estimates. It actually looked pretty solid, so I helped her get started. I gave her some money to launch it. I even took out a loan just to make sure she had everything she needed. And since it was her business, we put everything in her name. At the time, it made sense. For a while, things seemed normal. Months went by, and the business looked like it was doing fine. But eventually, I started noticing something strange. I'd come home from work late in the evening, and the house would be completely dark. No lights, no TV, no electricity. The first time it happened, I assumed she forgot to recharge the meter, but then it started happening more often. Every few days, I'd come home and the house would be sitting in total darkness. I'd unlock the door, pull out my phone, turn on the flashlight, and that's when I'd see her, sitting on the couch, facing the door, like she had been waiting for me, in total darkness. The first few times, I didn't think too much about it. I'd laugh it off. "Babe, why didn't you recharge the electricity?" She would just smile at me. A slow, calm smile, and say something that made my stomach feel strange every time I heard it. "I don't need it." At first, I assumed she meant she didn't need the lights. But something about the way she said it always stuck with me. One night when I walked in, my phone flashlight hit her face directly. That's when I noticed something that made my chest tighten. Her pupils didn't react to the light. They stayed wide, completely black, like the light didn't bother her at all. I remember standing there for a second, just staring at her, waiting for her eyes to adjust, but they never did. They just stayed the same, wide, black, empty. I tried to ignore it. I told myself I was just tired. Work had been stressful and my mind was probably overthinking things. But after that, the feeling didn't go away. If anything, it got worse. Another thing I noticed was that she rarely left the house anymore. When I was home, she'd go out sometimes, but when I left for work, her car never moved. The gas gauge barely changed. It was like she had no reason to leave the house unless I was there. One night, I came home earlier than usual. I opened the front door quietly, and I heard voices coming from the living room. More than one. It sounded like she was talking to someone. Maybe 2 people, maybe 3. The voices were low, like a quiet conversation. But when I turned on the light, the room was empty. Just her, sitting on the couch, facing the door. That's when I finally decided to start looking for answers. A few nights later, I went up into the attic. I wasn't even sure what I was hoping to find, but after about 10 minutes of digging through old boxes, I saw something pushed into the corner under a pile of blankets, a small storage box. When I opened it, I immediately felt something in my stomach drop. Inside the box were photographs, wedding photographs, but they weren't ours. The woman in the photos was my wife. Same face, same hair, same expression, but the man standing next to her kept changing. Different man, different wedding, different year. I counted them twice just to make sure I wasn't losing my mind. 7. 7 different weddings, 7 different husbands. And the strange part was, she looked exactly the same in every single picture. Same age, same face, same white wedding dress. The photos were taken years apart, but nothing about her had changed. Under the photos I found a stack of identification cards. Different names, different states, different signatures, but every single one had her face. Sarah, Grace, Jennifer, Amaka, Patience. All of them were her. That's when I understood something. My wife wasn't who she said she was. That night I waited for her to come home. When she walked into the living room, I showed her the box, the photos, the IDs. For a few seconds she didn't say anything. She just looked at the pictures. Then she looked back at me, completely calm, like she had been expecting this moment. "You were always going to find out eventually," she said. I remember asking her a question that I still regret asking. "Who are you?" She tilted her head slightly and smiled. "Does it matter?" The way she said it made my skin crawl. I asked her what happened to the men in the photographs, the husbands. She stood there quietly for a moment. Then she turned toward the door. "They're still here," she said. And then she left. I couldn't sleep that night. It was as if I was running mad or something. The next morning, every trace of her was gone. Her clothes, her documents, everything. Like she had never lived there. A few weeks passed. I tried to move on. I told myself maybe she had just been living a double life. Maybe the photos were some kind of scam. Maybe there was a logical explanation for everything. Then one night my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick it up. A man's voice spoke on the other end. Quiet. Careful. "Is this Michael?" I hesitated. "Yeah." There was a pause. Then he asked a question that made my stomach turn. "Did your wife ever use the name Grace?" I didn't say anything. He kept talking. "I found your number in a box in my basement." My hands started shaking. "There were pictures," he said. "Wedding photos." I already knew what he was going to say next. "The man in them wasn't me." There was a long silence between us. Finally, he asked the same question I once asked her. What do you think she is? I hung up the call because I didn't have an answer then, and I still don't. All I know is she's still out there, somewhere, with a new name, a new husband, starting the pattern all over again.